Good morning and welcome everyone, speakers, panelists, guests, and colleagues to the discussion about classical culture and tourism, a happy matrimony. I am Dafort Villaseran, the Manila Times supplements and special features editor.
E io sono Janina Lorelei, classical crossover mezzo-soprano.
And we are your co-hosts. It is our privilege to be your co-hosts for this morning.
Ospitando insieme per la prima volta.
Just like this forum is hopefully the first of many conversations about opera, symphony performances, and ballet that we will be having to be able to promote cultural tourism in the Philippines.
Some of you might also know the Manila Times columnist Ben Kritz, who will be moderating the fireside chat with our four speakers and our three panelists to discuss classical culture and tourism, a happy matrimony.
But before we proceed with our first speaker, allow us to introduce a man of culture who has toured many places in the world and who also happens to be happily married. He is the chairman of the National Book Development Board that sets up free book nooks for lovers of literature of all ages across the archipelago. He writes the editorial for the Manila Times, along with a few choice journalists. And he interviews industry leaders, government officials, and diplomats on the Manila Times Roundtable. He is, of course, the chairman and chief executive officer of the Manila Times. Distinguished guests and attendees, please give a warm welcome for Dante Klink Ang II.
Ambassador Clemente, the moving force behind our drive to do more things cultural. Of course, our champion in the creative industries sector, Kong Toff de Venecia, Director Charlene Zabala Batin of the Department of Tourism, of course, Mr. Kevin Tan, our longtime partner and supporter in many projects of the Manila Times, Ms. Maan Hontiveros, nice to see you again, ma'am. Commissioner Villalon of the NCCA, Ms. Karla Gutierrez, the founder of Philippine Opera, my colleagues at the Manila Times, ladies and gentlemen, again, good morning and welcome to today's event. If you haven't been to Manila Times event, we hold and organize these things basically to open up what we do as a newspaper to the public. So normally I'm reminded that maybe we should be doing more of these events because our topics are mainly on hard topics, the economy, geopolitics, and others. But I'm reminded that maybe there should be more attention given by our paper to, as a movie once said, things that we actually live for. But for those of you who know me, you know that I look at things maybe basically from an economic lens. So I can't help myself that maybe I'm appreciating classical culture and tourism from an economic lens. And I know that, as I said, we should be doing more of this, perhaps from that perspective, because I think this is a way that we can come together as a nation, and maybe work together towards achieving our common aspirations. I just want to be brief and just thank the people and our partners who've made this event possible. They include our special partners, of course, the Embassy of Italy in the Philippines, Bottega PH, Cultura, our patron sponsors, INSPI, YAM Agency, Shirigetsu, and our media partners, Rising Tigers Magazine and the Manila Times TV. And of course, thank you everyone for being here. I know you have a choice and many other things that are going on in Manila. I'd like to thank those watching this on our live stream or on our recorded video. I hope you guys have a productive morning and I look forward to the talks today. Thank you.
Our first speaker graduated from Lewis University in Rome with a degree in political science. He joined the diplomatic corps in 1984 and has had an illustrious career in the Foreign Service for 40 years, including in places such as Canberra, Caracas, Johannesburg, Yerevan, and Tallinn. On September 2, 2021, he began his tour of duty with the Embassy of Italy to the Republic of the Philippines, Republic of Palau, Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Federal States of Micronesia. Esteemed guests and attendees, please give a round of applause for His Excellency, Ambassador Marco Clemente.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the presentation, but today I want to be seen without my diplomatic hat, which I'm dismissing very soon, by the way, but only as a friend of the Philippine culture, as a as a lover of classical culture, but most importantly, music. I understand that after my 10-minute presentation, there will be the possibility to delve into more details about what I'm going to say today during the debate or the conversation we will be having with the other panelists. As I said before, I'm here as a music lover, in particular as an opera lover, to share with you my personal experience, because we have something in mind with this. I have something in mind. I was given the privilege to speak as the first, but I'm not setting the pace. I don't want to set the pace of the debate. It's just a coincidence that I speak first, and I will focus on one particular topic. But of course, it will be up to Ben to articulate better our debate. Of course, the title is Classical Culture and Tourism. But since I'm a very pragmatic person and I speak only when I have something to say concrete, and I would like that we leave this all today with some concrete projects. So I'll go straight to the point. Since I'm a private person, so I won't waste your time with diplomatic niceties. I just want to go straight to the point. I come from a country where tourism is, like yours, one of the most important economic resources. We are privileged, like you are, to have history, natural features. But there is something extra that we give to the tourist, and which is something that on which I hope I can share some experience with you, which is performing arts, and in particular opera. I'm a very outspoken person, so take it is my personal opinion, but not because I'm a big opera fan. I'm practically obsessed by opera for reasons that is not this forum, the right place to discuss about. But I do believe that opera is I'm provocative today, because this is what the forum is all about. Let's start a debate. I'm a strong believer of this dogma. Opera is the only form of art which is capable to attract foreign tourists. I say that not because I'm an opera fan, but because I saw it happen. In my 40 and plus years of traveling around the world and frequenting the opera summers, especially summer festivals, but also in winter seasons, I saw a lot of Asian tourists, but really a lot. It's amazing how many Japanese, South Koreans, Chinese go to Europe to attend opera festivals, especially in summer, because of course it's a time of the year when it's easier not to take your vacation. So my provocation today to, of course, the representative of the House of Representatives, to the congressman, to the representative of the government, to the businessman, to the media, is why can the Philippines become the hub of the opera lovers in this area? Why Japanese, South Koreans, Chinese should spend so much to fly to Europe if they can have something similar much closer to their place? Why the Philippines can become a hub of opera lovers in this area? Because you are the most European, westernized country. You are both westernized and Asian. So you are this perfect blend, and your tradition after 300 and plus years, it's not a political judgment here. From a cultural point of view, obviously, you can count on those traditions. I know that there was an opera house in Manila some time ago. So my humble and unsolicited proposal is, let's put our forces together. We need the political will, we need the governmental, let's say, instruments, we need the money, and we need also the experience. In this, I think I can play a role. In a few weeks, I will be finally a free man, devoted to what I like the most, which is traveling around Europe and other places to see operas. I hopefully will be dealing with a lot of opera institutions in Italy, and I say Italy because it's easier for me as an Italian to deal with them. Unfortunately, at the last moment, the delegation of the Puccini Foundation, who was planning to come to see the Young Puccini concert that we organized on the 26th of May at the Arete Theater in Ateneo de Manila. It was a very important concert. Puccini's music never performed before, so they were so impressed by what we had done that they decided to come. And on that occasion, I asked for a call on Secretary Frasco. Unfortunately, the trip was canceled, so the call was not possible. But the idea, the very fact that the delegation wanted to call on the secretary, I think it's an evidence that there is a space for a cooperation. So my proposal, very concretely, is the following. Let's find political will, the tourism expertise by the secretary, and the money to start planning an summer opera festival in one of your very many beautiful touristy spots that you have. You are very proud to have that, and rightly so. But you are not the only country with beautiful beaches or beautiful infrastructure. You have to offer the foreign tourists, the rich one. We're talking, I'm sorry to be classist, we're talking about high level, high spending, as you say, that like the ones I see in the Italian summer. There are people with a lot of spending capabilities, because they are ready to spend a lot of money with air transfer and accommodation. So a summer festival opera, a summer opera festival in some of your beautiful places, could be Boracay, the representative of the tourism even mentioned a possible place. She mentioned that there is something already ready. But, of course, mounting, when I say an opera summer, of course an opera summer festival needs a real full-fledged, fully staged opera. You cannot offer the South Korean, Chinese tourists just the usual, seen umpteen times, arias, and you at Nessun Dorma. No, forget that. No Chinese rich millionaire would ever fly to Bohol to see something that he can watch anywhere. You have to give them a fully fledged stage opera with costumes, with everything, in a beautiful set. So they go to the beach in the morning, and in the evening, instead of going to the bar and get drunk, they can have a beautiful cultural experience. I know that this happens. Not it can happen. It happens. It happens every summer in the Italian Summer Festival. Verona, Pesaro, Torre del Lago, Martina Franca, you name them. There are at least 5, 6 major summer opera festivals. And every time I go there, I see Asian. Why? You cannot intercept that people and try to convince them to come. They can save some money. So this is the idea. On this first step, I can help, because of course it's not easy. You need someone who produces these sort of things. Of course, distance is tyrannical. I know it's not easy, but it can be done. maybe not an entire production, but maybe some singers, some producer, a conductor, some leading soloist. This can be arranged. You fortunately have the resources here because you have the talents, you have orchestra, choir, you have directors, conductors. So there is a space, a maneuvering space for a synergy here. This first step might take 2 years, because of course we cannot hide the fact that it is going to be complicated. It's costly, but if you start now to consider and to promote and to convince the investors that this is an investment, like all investment, I'm not Dante, I'm not as expert to you, but investment is the risk of entrepreneur. It's an investment. It is something that can bear fruits, and it's something never attempted before, because I might be wrong, but I've never heard a summer opera festival organized in this part of the world. I've never heard it. I check on internet and I see there is something in South Korea, but probably they have to close. This is not good sign, because it might have been a fiasco. But they tried. I don't know what happened. But the entrepreneurs, this is what the spirit of entrepreneur. You have to take your risks. I think it's worth trying. Also because it could lead to something else. And a little bird told me that there is a businessman who is building an opera house. He rings a good bell to me, because an opera house in Manila, if there is a container, there must be a contained. So if someone builds an opera house, I imagine that they want to start an opera season. Otherwise, call it auditorium, call it theater, call it musical. But if they call it opera house, that means that they want to do an opera house. And now I call on all the cultural institution representatives, take advantage of this. You, sooner or later, will have a house for opera. Only opera and ballet. Please, don't get it mixed. Otherwise, you will lose this peculiar. Because if you start, with all due respect, with other kind of theatrical music experience, but if you start to do zarzuelas, musicals, and some other rock opera, then this opera house will lose its nature. It must be prevented, because, in my humble opinion, then you tell me my time is over. I want to do a prediction here. If you open an opera house in Manila, which will be, apart from Beijing, that was during the Olympic Games, that was a major thing. But it would be the first new opera houses in this part of the world. You will make the front pages in Europe, because this is the news that opera lovers in Europe might like to read. That opera is alive also in this part of the world, where, unfortunately, that genre is not in your DNA, it's in your tradition. So I'm sure that if the Summer Opera Festival, to be organized and starting in 2 years, leads to the opening, which is even more likely because they are building. Sorry, I do this because I know who am I talking about. They're doing that. They're doing it. I know, I heard. The little bird was pretty informed that this is going to happen. So then, if you have an opera house, then, as I said, there is a container, there is a content, there is interest. Of course, in this I conclude, but I want to elaborate that during the debate. In 3 years, I've had the experience that opera is losing ground here. I'm pretty aware of this. We've tried together with some friends to make it happen, but it's difficult. So, of course, we have to have to perform an act of faith. We have to have a top-bottom approach. Don't expect, for the time being, a big interest from the rank and file in order to start. Don't have this approach. Oh no, there is no market for that. No, there is no market. Maybe in the Philippines, but let's not forget the title of this panel is tourism in general. So we talk also of also foreign tourists. But for now, it's I think I've been provocative enough to. I'm sorry if I focus only on opera. There is a reason though. This is the main point of my. I do believe that if you want to make money out of culture, I should have asked the Manila Times to put directly opera, but that wouldn't be, let's say, fair, because maybe during the debate, the discussion will go somewhere else. So as a first speaker, I say, I do believe, and I even dare to say, trust my word, because I have some experience after 50 years, no 40 in my career, but 50 as an opera. I have the evidence that this is true. If you want to make money with tourists here and the foreign tourists, you have to invest on opera. Unfortunately, other form of art, as beautiful as they are, equally worthy, and but they don't have the power of what's it called in Spanish? They say convocatoria. No? They don't attract, because the kind of tourists I have in mind, they fly only to see opera. This is my little experience. Thank you for your attention. I hope that this provocation will have made our debate very lively and interesting.
Grazie, Ambasciatore Clemente. La inviteremo di nuovo sul palco più tardi per il segmento informale di domande e risposte con l'editorialista del Manila Times, Ben Kritz.
So let's move on to our second talk. We have another dear friend of the Manila Times. She has shared a lot of her knowledge and time with us. In fact, she has written recently a very comprehensive article on tourism sustainability for the Manila Times 500 and the Next 500 magazine. For tourism, she has spearheaded the Philippines Hop On, Hop Off program. Her high-profile projects include the World Travel and Tourism Global Summit and the FIBA World Basketball Championship. Now, since November 2021, she has served as the Regional Director for the Department of Tourism, National Capital Region. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome DOT NCR Regional Director Charlene Zabala Batin.
Thank you, Dafort, and thank you, Janina. I think I should scrap my speech altogether, because Mr. Dante Click Ang, second Chairman and CEO of the Manila Times, of course, His Excellency Ambassador of the Italian Embassy to the Philippines, Marco Clemente, the patron of the arts, or for the creative arts for the whole Philippines, Honorable Christopher Toff de Venecia, the Pangasinan 4th District Representative, Mr. Kevin Tan, a patron of the arts himself, the Chief Executive Officer of Alliance Global Group, Ms. Blanca Mercado, my dear friend. We call each other classmates in major events, not just in Newport, but elsewhere. Good morning. Our co-panelists, of course, the esteemed Commissioner of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the heads of the National Committee for Music, Mr. Arvin Manuel Villalon, our dear friend, the founder of the Philippine Opera Company, Ms. Karla Gutierrez, and the president of Manila Symphony Orchestra, Ms. Hontiveros. I prepared a little something because I'm here to represent not just my Undersecretary Shereen Gail Yu-Pamintuan, but of course the whole Department of Tourism as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, with your indulgence, unfortunately, Ambassador, it's not focusing solely on the opera because I didn't receive that memo yet, but I will try. I will try to do justice. But fellow enthusiasts of culture, classical or otherwise, and of course, lovers of tourism, mabuhay. Yeah. It is with great pleasure that the Department of Tourism is invited today to celebrate the beautiful matrimony between classical culture and tourism, a union that promises endless exploration and enrichment. So the Philippines is known as a nation of vibrant culture and history, and boasts an array of classical arts that echo in the depths of its soul. One cannot discuss Filipino classical art without mentioning the iconic Spolarium by Juan Luna. This masterpiece, with its dramatic depiction of gladiators in the Roman Colosseum, symbolizes the Filipino struggle and resilience. Beyond this beautiful artwork, our nation is home to a plethora of classical artworks that reflects our history, our traditions, and the vibrant spirit of our people. From the romanticism of Fernando Marsola's intricate Philippine scenes to the vibrant mural paintings of Carlos Botong Francisco, these masterpieces serve as a testament to the Philippines' rich cultural tapestry. Classical culture, with its timeless beauty and profound heritage, continues to captivate hearts and minds worldwide. And what better way to celebrate and honor this magnificent tapestry than through tourism? In our pursuit of promoting classical culture and tourism, it is imperative that we embrace initiatives that not only showcase the beauty of our heritage, but also provide enriching experiences for travelers, or in Kong Toff's words kanina, co-create. The National Tourism Development Plan 2023 to 2028, through the vision of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and the staunch leadership of my Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco, has the strategic vision of establishing a Philippine tourism industry that is anchored on Filipino culture, heritage, and identity. It aims to be sustainable, resilient, and competitive, transforming the Philippines into a tourism powerhouse of Asia. And as is highlighted in one of the 7-point agenda of this plan, the diversification of portfolio of multidimensional tourism, arts has been identified as one of the key products that shall be given priority of the Marcos administration. The Department of Tourism has been at the forefront of this endeavor, rolling out innovative projects that weave art into the fabric of the tourism industry. One such initiative is the Philippine Experience Program, which includes an arts caravan. This traveling showcase highlights the vibrant tapestry of Filipino arts from the various regions, allowing locals and tourists alike to experience the diverse cultural expressions that define the Filipino identity. Moreover, the Philippines Hop On Hop Off project is creating a seamless circuit for art enthusiasts. This initiative includes prominent cultural sites such as the National Museum of Fine Arts, which houses an extensive collection of the Philippine artwork, and visitors can embark on a journey through time, exploring pieces that narrate our country's history, from pre-colonial artifacts to contemporary masterpieces. Our commitment to promoting arts and culture doesn't end here. We recognize the importance of fostering a thriving art scene in the communities across the Philippines. Initiatives like the San Juan Art Circuit are significant by creating spaces where local tourists can showcase their work and engage with visitors. We support the growth of the arts and create opportunities for cultural exchange and dialogue. Further, Metro Manila has been awarded as the world's leading city destination at the World Travelers Award, highlighting our unique cultural arts and heritage. The Department of Tourism's dedication to integrating arts and culture into our tourism strategies underscore the importance we place on preserving and promoting our rich artistic traditions. By doing so, we not only enhance the tourism experience, but also ensure that our cultural heritage is passed down to our future generations. In closing, the synergy between cultural arts and tourism is a powerful catalyst for national development. As we continue to promote and preserve our classical arts, we enrich the tourism experience and strengthen our national identity. The harmonious union of classical culture and tourism is a testament to the enduring legacy of our heritage and the boundless potential of our nation. So for all of you here, we urge you to continue to love the Philippines and love Metro Manila. It all starts here. Maraming salamat po.
Next, let's have our third talk. With degrees from the Ateneo de Manila University and Harvard Kennedy School of Government, our third speaker is a member of the House of Representatives who champions Philippine creative industries. His landmark legislation, the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act, aims to elevate the country as the top creative economy in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Aside from being the representative of the 4th District of Pangasinan, he is the lead convener of the arts, culture, and creative industries. Ladies and gents, please give a round of applause for Representative Christopher Toff de Venecia.
His Excellency Marco Clemente, I think you are a man of same passion and conviction as myself. Of course, my friend, Chairman and CEO of the Manila Times, and of course, Chairman of the National Book Development Board, Dante Klink Ang. Kevin Tan, CEO of Alliance Global Group. Thank you for all that you do for the performing arts. I just watched Guragudun Stugudun Stoy, the Parokya ni Edgar musical. It was amazing. Of course, Secretary Cristina Frasco, represented by RD Charlene Zavala Batin. Arvin Villalon, Commissioner for the Arts of the NCCA. My dear friend Karla Gutierrez of the Philippine Opera Company and my fellow board member of PhilStage. Marian Hontiveros, President of the Manila Symphony Orchestra. All of our guests here today, and those maybe watching at home if this is live stream. Masantos Yaagaw at Sikayo Namin. Greetings and creativity. It's an honor to stand before all of you today to talk about this synergy between classical culture and tourism, what I would consider to be the rock stars of our Philippine economy if harnessed properly and given enough funding to be able to do what it is that we envision. And so I'd like to thank the Italian Embassy and the Manila Times for their able partnership in making this forum possible. So I want to highlight the significance of our partnership with the Italian Embassy. This collaboration highlights the deep cultural connection and appreciation between our nations, recognizing how authentic cultural experiences can serve as a bridge between different countries and affirming the burgeoning relationship between the Philippines and Italy. My father was Speaker of the House for about 13 years. He served Speaker for 5 terms under President FVR and GMA. And he was sort of like a global Filipino in a sense that he really espoused interfaith dialogue. That was his advocacy. I sort of engendered my own, which is really intercultural dialogue. And this is something that I can maybe talk about further. It's really a way of bringing countries together, even those with disparate and irreparable differences. Culture can serve as a very important tool in igniting that same heart and unity between nations. But yeah, Italy, with its rich history and well-preserved cultural sites, serves as an exemplary model of how classical culture and tourism can coexist harmoniously. So today's forum offers us valuable insights and best practices that we can adapt to the Philippine context. It also opens doors for future collaboration, so I'm really excited to help make these projects that you mentioned earlier into a reality. So culture and tourism are inextricably linked, each enhancing the other in a beautiful symbiosis. Our culture is the bedrock of our identity, and it gives us stories, traditions, values, food, artifacts that enthrall and inspire Filipinos and peoples from all over the world, really. Tourism, on the other hand, brings these cultural treasures to a broader audience. Tourism generates global knowledge. It also generates knowledge of our, not just of our country, but also of our culture, which in turn bolsters our economy, creates a culture of appreciation, and funds for the preservation even of our cultural assets. So, FYI, 10% of travel tax goes to the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. So, if not for the travel tax that you pay in airports, the NCCA and Arvin won't have budget to do anything. So, yeah, maybe that should be bigger, no? But anyway, but 50% goes to CHED for scholarships, so it's also very important. So, for instance, the DOT plays a crucial role in the annual celebration of National Heritage Month, which just concluded actually. It's held every May. This month-long observance dedicated to the promotion and preservation of the Philippines' rich cultural heritage sees the DOT actively engaging in a variety of initiatives and activities. These include organizing cultural tours, heritage site visits, special events that highlight the country's historical landmarks and cultural traditions, of course, in partnership with NCCA and the National Historical Commission. The DOT collaborates with LGUs, cultural organizations, and community groups to create immersive experiences that educate both locals and tourists about the importance of heritage conservation. By showcasing traditional craft, art, music, dance, cuisine, the DOT helps to foster a deeper appreciation of the Philippines' cultural diversity and historical richness. This participation not only enhances the visibility of cultural heritage sites in the country, but also boosts local tourism, driving economic benefits that are inclusive and trickle down to the grassroots, while ensuring that cultural heritage remains a vibrant and integral part of the nation's identity. Of course, this coming September will be the second nationwide celebration of the Philippine Creative Industries Month. And we encourage our partners, the Italian Embassy, Kevin, the Alliance Group, NBDB, to DOT, of course, to partner with the Department of Trade and Industry and with government for a whole of government and society approach towards mainstreaming the importance of our Philippine creative economy. I hope this year's celebration will be an even bigger one. So the relationship between culture and modern tourism is a very happy matrimony. But the relationship between and among the creative industries, which do include culture and tourism, is dynamic and very much powerful. The creative industries are an expression of our culture, identity, and history. Of course, they say that creativity is the ultimate regenerative, sustainable resource. And if we can find a way to merge culture, which is very past centric, and culture and heritage, rather, is very past centric, and creativity, which is very future centric, then these two elements can create a very exciting present that can also bridge gaps in generations. These industries are a lifeblood that invigorate our cultural heritage, making it accessible and relevant to contemporary audiences. In turn, this process of reimagining, revitalizing our cultural assets attracts both local and foreign nationals who long to experience the uniqueness of Philippine heritage culture and the arts. By nurturing our creative industries, we will not only preserve and promote our rich cultural heritage or boost our tourism industry, but we will foster a deeper understanding and appreciation of our identity among the peoples of the world. We can possibly create a global phenomenon similar to the Hallyu or the Korean wave. We all know that it's taken the world by storm, and its global popularity and the local economy of South Korea is very much driven by their creative content. So it is possible to invest in creativity, which really means investing in our people. And we know that Filipinos are very creative, very talented. So it's time that we don't take it for granted, but we actually lean in and provide the necessary environment and the resources to be able to make all of these creative output possible. Now, at the core of creative industries really is the interpretation of culture. Content creators translate intangible aspects of our heritage, like stories, traditions, and values, into tangible and engaging forms that resonate with people, both locally and globally. So, through creative works, cultural narratives are told and retold, ensuring that our heritage remains dynamic and alive. So, for instance, Gomburza, the film of Pepe Diokno about the three martyr priests, Padre Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora, told in a contemporary lens. Of course, film is a very contemporary creative output, but talking about our history and heritage in a way it's able to make people aware of what really happened with these three iconic priests, because we don't know much about them apparently, and that one was just a victim of circumstance. He just happened to have been there when the Spaniards came and arrested one of the other priests. So it's a way of enlightening us about our history, but at the same time, it's able to showcase Filipino creativity and talent, and it's gone on to win many awards, including the Metro Manila Film Festival. So that means creativity is also a form of cultural regeneration. We see this in fashion today. There's a lot of fashion designers who are very much interested in sustainability, cyclicality, recycling, upcycling, yes. And of course, really moving our contemporary, our heritage weaves into more contemporary forms. But of course, not all heritage content can be transposed into something creative, because there are some heritage content that should be preserved and should not be subjected to economical transactions. But it's not just in fashion that we're seeing, or film, that we're seeing the past being brought into the future. Even with opera, for example, and we're joined here by Karla Gutierrez, like one of her iconic shows is Harana, which is it's not just really a performance, but it's also a promotion of Philippine history, but it's also a preservation of these forms, because you make these classical forms accessible to the Gen Zs. And so it's important that they are made aware of their heritage, their history, and their past, but also create content that is accessible to them, but also sexy, in a way that it's something that can ignite and stir their imagination. And it's also for this reason why we filed, and it's now a law, it's one of my more recent laws, the Cultural Mapping Law, which is an amendment to RA 10066, or the Cultural Heritage Act. So under this law, all LGUs are now mandated to undertake cultural mapping. They're supposed to take stock of their cultural heritage and their natural heritage of cultural significance. And all this data that's collected by cultural mapping should be fed into what is now known as the Philippine Registry for Heritage. But what I'm working on with NCCA now is on a toolkit to help LGUs leverage on all this cultural data for creative output. Because everyone is doing festivals now, and sadly, all these festivals are starting to look alike. There seems to be a blueprint for what a festival should look like, and the programming is similar. And if it's not culturally rooted and grounded, then you lose out on the comparative advantage. So meaning to say, culture is our comparative advantage. It is what will set our creative output apart from other people's creative output. And so even naming a festival, programming a festival, in terms of what you're going to include in the week-long or month-long festivities, all of that should be guided by the cultural data from the cultural map. In fact, it's not just LGUs that can benefit from the cultural map. It's also cultural education as undertaken by the DepEd. Because I think it's important for our learners to know the history of the community where they come from. And there's a reason why our barangays are called the way they are. There's always a story behind all of that. There's a reason why a culture persists with a certain community. It's because it has been there and it has been perpetrated throughout the generations that followed. And so it's important for our learners to be aware of these things so that they can then be rooted and anchored and grounded in their identity, but also be able to imagine a future in which a future that they can help usher and shepherd. And of course, a cultural map can also assist the MSME sector. Because like, for example, in my district, there are a lot of coffee shops. There are a lot of coffeepreneurs that are creating their own latte blends. They are creating their own recipes, or they're even naming, they're even branding existing recipes and calling them a certain name. Cultural map can inform how local MSMEs are able to ply their trade. I think what's very popular with local MSMEs now is that they're always going to name their business based on combining the names of their parents. That seems to be like the default. But if you are aware of who the local heroes are, what are the local herbs that grow in your community, who are the people in that neighborhood that predated their arrival, then they can be possibly an inspiration for how to name your cafe, how to name your lattes, and even how to guide the branding of your MSMEs, your festivals, and many others. And so I'm excited for this toolkit to be completed by the NCCA so that we can teach all our LGUs on how to leverage on cultural data for creative output so that it is more competitive. Um, which really means that culture is our strongest asset in the global market. In fact, as I learned from a lot of creative movers and shakers, they always say that to go global, we must be hyper local. And this is such a radical paradigm shift because we're the Philippines. We've been colonized 3 times over, 4 times over even. So it's like it's the Spanish, it's the Americans, a brief British period that not a lot of people know about, right? And then the Japanese, right? So we are a melting pot. We are a melange of like different cultures, and somehow it's been ingrained to us like this whole concept of like colonial mentality. So even our creatives historically have tried to make ourselves at par globally by trying to emulate, forms that are Western usually. But now with how the world has become globalized, liberalized, even access to creative content has been liberalized. You have Netflix where you have foreign content, and we Filipinos love foreign content. We love the K-drama, and I think a majority of us love watching it in the Korean tongue with subtitles rather than even turning on those like audio translations. So right now, there's something to be said about how we need to start leaning into ourselves in creating output or creating content, because it's in the celebration of who we are as Filipinos that will make us globally competitive. If you watch the TV series Taste the Nation that's hosted by Padma Lakshmi, I think season 2 episode 6 talks about like global Filipino cuisine in San Francisco, focusing on Daly City. And it's a very emotional 30-minute episode where you have these generations talking about like their love and appreciation for Filipino food. The first wave of migrants who moved to the United States, there was a shame that they associated with Filipino food, that it's like oily and brown, and it's something that they don't proudly showcase to their friends and their family. However, the new generation is starting to reclaim the pride that they have affixed to their own cuisine. And now you have a Michelin star Filipino restaurant in the form of Kasama. And many other Filipino restaurants that are bringing the old with the new, like finding exciting ways to present sinigang and ilaga and lumpia and all of these like wonderful Filipino food that we've always known to be good. And so I suppose what DTI, NCCA, DOT, what we all need to work on together is how to radically change that paradigm and mindset among Filipino creators and creatives. To instead of trying to be somebody else, we have to lean into ourselves. We have to talk about the stories from our own backyard, which is why I celebrate Karla with her work with Harana and Philippine Opera Company, and all of our book developers who are creating content, comic books, graphic novels, like even trade books that talk about like local culture, because they do find resonance elsewhere. And I think that's something that the Italians have figured out way, way before us, that they celebrate who they are. And we go to Italy because of that. We go to Italy for the classical culture. We go to Italy for the architecture that in their country it's preserved. Here, like before it hits the 50-year mark of like not being able to demolish it or alter it. Like, we're always going for modernity. But in Europe, there's always a leaning into their culture and heritage, and that's what brings in the economic value of tourism and even their own creative economy. So there's really so much to be said, and I actually had a few more pages, but I think I've gone over time. So I just look forward to continuing this discussion with all of you in our panel. I just want to end with some key important data in case you're all not aware. The Philippine creative economy, based on the Philippine Statistics Authority that we commissioned as also part of our law and as we funded in Congress, now stands at 7.1% of the country's GDP. The country's creative economy is now valued at 1.7 trillion pesos. It generates jobs for more than 7 million Filipinos. That's more than 12.5% of our total labor force. So this is a rising star of the Philippine economy. This is a driver of our post-pandemic recovery. So we need to lean in by affixing it importance. We need to be able to afford it more resources, which is why I'm so passionate about the inclusion of earmarking for the digital VAT collections for the creative industry programs of government. And then also just providing more opportunities for us to be able to come together and discuss the importance of this sector and getting more partners to come on board, because definitely government can do it all on its own. In fact, in a recent trip to London upon the invitation of British Council, we saw that a lot of the creative economy programs and strategies of London and the greater UK are all really being driven by the private sector, with the government right behind them, just supporting them every step of the way. So I hope that we can get to that point where we have a very empowered, creative community, and then every time they need support, whether in participating in a trade show abroad or a grant to fund the production of their local cultural content, or even policy or regulation, such as maybe adjustment of amusement tax, which takes away from the sustainability of live events, whether it's concert, theater, opera, or whatever it is. Just providing a lot of policy instruments to make the creative economy here more sustainable towards a more creative future. I think at the end of the day, we're doing all of these things because we know the power and potential of the creative economy. And as a creative myself, it's always been with struggle that we create here in this country that doesn't seem to appreciate it much. However, what we can do is maybe create a better future for the next generation of creatives, so that if a young kid goes up to his parents and say, I want to be an opera singer, I want to be a painter, I want to be a designer, it's something that will be met not with resistance or cynicism from the older generations, but actually with acceptance and support. So thank you, and have a good rest of your morning.
Our fourth speaker is one of the youngest leaders to become president and CEO of a major Philippine company. He leads the master planning and of pioneering townships developments across the country. He currently sits as chairman of the board of Travelers International Hotel Group, the developer and operator of Newport World Resorts. He is also the chief executive officer of the Alliance Global Group, the parent company of Mega World Corporation, Emperador Distilleries Incorporated, and a partner of McDonald's Philippines under its master franchise holder, Golden Arches Development Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kevin Tan.
His Excellency Ambassador Marco Clemente of the Italian Embassy to the Philippines, Tourism Director for NCR, Charlene Zabala Batin, Pangasinan 4th District Representative, Honorable Christopher De Venecia, and the Manila Times Chairman and CEO, Mr. Dante Klink Ang II. Thank you very much for always having me here. And of course, to the fellow speakers and guests, pleasant morning to all of you. It is my pleasure to share with you today our story at the Alliance Global Group. and how we embrace and promote culture to enrich the tourism experience that our group offers. Our group currently has a huge focus on tourism. We take great pride in being one of the, if not the biggest tourism investor in the Philippines, and also being the Philippines' largest hotel operator. Today, AGI has about 7,500 rooms from 19 local and international operating hotels, from Travelers International Group and Megaward. These developments are located in key destinations such as Metro Manila, Batangas, Cebu, Iloilo, and Boracay. By 2028, we look to grow our hotel capacity to around 11,000 room keys, with the addition of 6 new big hotels under Mega World Hotel and Resorts to be located in Parañaque City, Laguna, Bacolod, San Fernando, Pampanga, Boracay, and San Vicente, Palawan. In 2023 alone, AGI poured about 22 billion pesos in tourism-related spending for our townships and hotels across the country. This allowed us to generate more than 36,000 direct and indirect jobs in this particular sector, while serving more than 2.5 million guests in our hotel developments. By 2024 and beyond, we are looking to pour in about 20 billion pesos more worth of investments for our tourism developments. This will allow us to help create about 32,000 jobs across our various hotels and other related developments. We believe that by preserving the cultural heritage of certain locations add value and character to the tourism experience that a destination offers. This is why we position every township that we develop as a destination for tourism. We build malls that attract not just diners and shoppers, but also foreign and domestic visitors. Take the case of Venice Grand Canal in the McKinley Hill. Since we launched it in 2015, we have seen an influx of visitors from all over the country and the world, making it one, if not the most photographed mall in the country today. We also built iconic monuments and structures that make our townships photogenic and Instagram and TikTok ready for influencers and even celebrities. In Pasig City, the iconic Arco de Emperador has become a head turner along C5, and the commanding structure has been a subject of many pictorials, vlogs, and news features during the past years. In Iloilo, our festive walk parade, where the iconic K-Town is located, alongside the General Delgado Monument, has also become iconic landmarks, not just within the township, but in Iloilo City in general. Whenever Iloilo City promotes tourism, they would include these structures as part of the city's icons. In Pampanga, we are preserving and retrofitting the historic chimneys of the Pasudeco Sugar Central, which are envisioned to be icons of Kapampangan tourism, arts, and culture. We have also been developing tourism townships in major destinations across the country, such as Twin Lakes, Paragua Coast Town in San Vicente, Palawan, and Boracay, New Coast in Aklan. We also celebrate the unique talent of Filipino artists and entertainers through world-class musicals in our Newport Performing Arts Theater. We've done local versions of Broadway classics like Sound of Music, Annie, The King and I, and many more. Just last year, we concluded the successful run of the musical series Ang Huling Il Limbo. And now we're happy to see another huge turnout for our Parokya ni Edgar musical. I shall not anymore attempt to pronounce the name because until now I still don't. I cannot. But I think Congressman De Venecia here actually said it very well. Just to add to that, we had discovered, to the
to Congressman Venecia's point, Filipino talent is truly spectacular, and we have found that a very good formula of taking old Filipino music, classic Filipino music, and turning them into playwright. Um, this is a successful formula that we intend to continue, and by June 23, we will be announcing our next big musical, again with a local Filipino musical talent. No? Aside from that, we wanted to also add that we do have a very big commitment to promoting Philippine performing arts, and that's why we are creating what we hope to be the Broadway of Asia at our West Side city. In West Side City, as you can see, we are planning to build an opera house. But again, I think we have to discuss what an opera house is and what a theater is. No? But effectively, this is a 1,500 seater theater, and it will host different kinds of shows, mostly musicals, and again, hopefully opera and Philippine opera. Aside from that, we'll have about four more other theaters beside it of different sizes to be able to host different kinds of shows. We have so many different formats. We can do musical shows, we can do concerts, we can do comedy. There's so much that the Filipino can do, and we realized that Filipino talent is unparalleled, and that we can actually make this a very big tourism driver for our country. Complementing this experience is the stellar collection of hotels within our Newport World Resorts, from Marriott Hotel, Hilton, Sheraton, Okura, Holiday Inn, Savoy, Belmont, and Belmont. Visitors will also love the outstanding roster of local and international restaurants at Newport World Resorts. Very soon, we will be opening the Gordon Ramsay Bar and Grill, the first ever restaurant in the Philippines from multi-Michelin starred celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay. We also endeavor to help ensure sustainability within the tourism and hospitality sector through the Academy for Leisure and Tourism. The ALT, an acronym inspired by the initials of my father, Dr. Andrew L. Tan, is the education arm of the Newport World Resorts that offers a variety of programs designed to equip learners with industry-grade skills and knowledge in different areas such as food and beverage service, culinary arts, hotel operations, gaming, and entertainment. So the concept behind this, the thinking behind this is that every year we are losing anywhere from 300 to 500 of our employees to jobs or lucrative jobs abroad. This happened when we opened up from the pandemic, and Singapore needed new casino personnel. And so the best place for that to look for is the Philippines. We are the best provider of talents. And so I told the team at the time, rather than compete or fight that trend, which we cannot compete with anyway, why not embrace it and make it part of our business model? So we decided we wanted to create a school where we can train the next generation of tourism talents that we can deploy not just in our hotels, but also in other hotels. Because we know that those that we have already trained will eventually also go abroad. So it's like a cycle. No? We continue to train, deploy, then some will go abroad. But the good thing is a lot of them are also coming back. So it goes full circle, really. This academy, we hope, my target is to be able to educate at least 400 to 500 students every year. And that target is set to grow. Will continue to grow. Filipino talents are the best in tourism. They are getting poached by Middle East, Europe, and pretty soon a lot of new integrated resorts will be opening all over Asia, and we expect that again Filipino talents will be in hot demand. And so we want to help contribute this. I think this is also quite good for the country, but we want to help train these talents, and we are using our property and our platform to be able to achieve this. Okay, so one way that we also preserve the culture and history of destinations where we are is through our museum developments. Currently, we have 5 museums under our portfolio. We have actually a foundation, a separate foundation just for all these museums. So these are all non-profit entities. Our museums portfolio consists of the Iloilo Museum of Contemporary Arts, or ILO-MOCA, located in the Iloilo Business Park Township. This museum is the first and only contemporary art museum in the whole of Visayas and Mindanao that features artworks from both national and local Ilonggo artists. Right beside ILO-MOCA is our Brandy Museum, an interactive museum that transports visitors to a real bodega in Spain. Here, visitors can immerse themselves in the world of Spanish spirits that includes sampling Spanish-inspired bites and beverages. I'm sorry, it's Spanish, not Italian. Over at Binondo, Manila, we also have the Chinatown Museum, the country's first cultural museum dedicated to the world's oldest Chinatown. In Bacolod, we have the historic gallery inside the Upper East House, which was inaugurated last year by no less than the First Lady, Lisa Araneta Marcos. This gallery showcases different photos, memorabilia, and historic items that pay tribute to the iconic structure of the former Bacolod Sugar Central Complex. An interesting thing about the structure is that it was recreated from their old house of the Aranetas at the Murcia complex. And the First Lady's father actually was the one managing that complex. So it was very close to their heart, to their family's heart. And so we launched that last year. And so we will continue to do more for Bacolod, no, in terms of arts and culture. In Lapu-Lapu City, or Mactan, we have just recently announced the Mactan World Museum, our news museum. This museum will feature an extensive collection of historic pieces that highlight the friendship and rich cultural exchange between the Philippines and Spain during the past centuries. This museum is actually located only about 100 meters away from the Mactan, the Lapu-Lapu Mactan Shrine, where Lapu-Lapu and Magellan had their historic battle. So we just announced this year, and we hope to open this hopefully by next year. Among other projects that we are excited to share with you include our new luxury hotel development, Newport Mansions in Pasay City, the Grand West Side, which will open this month and is touted to be the country's biggest hotel development in terms of room keys. This will actually have 1,500 rooms, which will make it the biggest hotel in the country. We also have Paragua Sands Hotel in San Vicente, Arcovia Hotel in Pasay, right across the iconic Arco de Emperador, Kingsford Hotel in Bacolod, in the Upper East, which will be Bacolod's biggest hotel development to date. We also recently began construction of the Mactan Expo Center, also at the Mactan New Town, which will be the first ever standalone convention center in the entire Cebu region. All of these developments and initiatives form part of our commitment to help support the Philippines' booming tourism sector. There is still so much we can do to help jumpstart economic progress through tourism, particularly in areas outside Metro Manila. And it all starts by embracing the many opportunities that come our way. Again, thank you very much, and once again, a pleasant morning to all of you.
Thank you, Kevin. We would like to invite you to make yourself comfortable on stage as we call on Ben Kritz, the moderator of our question and answer segment.
So if you indulge us just for a quick moment to properly introduce some of our panelists.
Karla is one of the Philippines' most loved sopranos, having been trained with Fides Cuyugan Ascension of the University of the Philippines College of Music, She pursued further studies in opera interpretation with the Accademia Internazionale delle Arti in Rome under Maestra Doris Andrews. Aside from being a music lover and artistic director, Maan Hontiveros has been a news broadcaster, television producer, airline chief executive officer, multimedia production and corporate communications entrepreneur, business leader advisor, environmental warrior, and cancer survivor. After studying at the Ateneo de Manila University, Arvin went on to get his Master of Indigenous Studies at the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand. A multi-awarded academic, he has risen through the ranks of the NCCA, applying his specialization in Indigenous culture and psychology. And for those of you who might not know, Ben's column is titled Rough Trade, and he is one of the distinguished few who write the editorials of the Manila Times together with Circlink. Ben, the stage is yours.
Thank you. That's more introduction than I need, I think. And thank everybody for coming out. And in these forums that we do quite frequently, I generally don't make much of a speech, but I'm going to talk for a few minutes today before we start having some questions, because our presentations gave me some thoughts. And I think in the interest of full disclosure, I should say that Ambassador Marco and I have discussed extensively the subject matter of this today and its importance. I would like to propose what I would say maybe would be a little bit of a roadmap, I think, based on our appreciation of tourism and culture in general, or specific appreciation of opera and the role that can play in culture. Since you brought it up, I'm also sitting here composing one of the weekend's editorials in my head. Because I will need to do that. I will need to do that task probably tomorrow, and I think this is a good topic. But I fully support the ambassador's vision of having an opera house, a dedicated opera house, which is something perhaps we need to discuss more in detail, and having this be a center for opera in Asia, because you don't have one. And let me tell you why I believe that is because a couple of months ago, I got to witness a very unique, and most of us were also here, a very unique event where a short Puccini opera was staged in what I would describe as an incredibly challenging setting for a bunch of school children in Tondo, Manila. And what impressed me about that whole thing was not just the quality of the show under those conditions. It was great in the way it was staged for the kids. But at a couple of points in the performance, I turned around in my seat, and two things surprised me. Number one, there were probably 10 times as many children sitting behind me as I realized were there. And number two, they were absolutely enchanted by the show that they were seeing. And this is an opera. It's probably something that they've never seen before, that form of art. It's in Italian, although they did take several breaks and explain in the vernacular what was happening with the story. It's hot, it's in an outdoor court, and they were absolutely enchanted by it. And that got me thinking, the ambassador's idea is very good. We need to have an opera house here, because he's right. You do, if you happen to see it, if you happen to be vacationing in Europe and you decide to take in an opera, you're in Italy or there are some, I'm sorry, but I'm used to German operas as well. You see lots of people from Taiwan, people from China, people from Korea, from Japan, lots of Asians. But they should come here. You spend so much time, in the tourism, industry and in the government, trying to attract these people to come here for other reasons. Why not have them come here for that? So I think that should be, that by itself should be a key objective. Have an opera house that does only opera and has the premier opera festival in Asia. And then I think that those children, and many more children, and many more young people, and many people of all ages here in the Philippines will wonder, what is this about? Why are all these people coming here? Why are we suddenly famous for this? And they become more interested in it. And then all of the good singers and all of the good musicians that already exist here decide they want to become opera stars. And soon, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, soon, the opera companies in Italy are asking Filipino singers to come and join their company, Filipino musicians to come and play in their orchestras. What do you think?
I want to make another provocation, because this is what a forum is all about. Of course, I'm Italian, so I like provocation, and I was commenting with Ben before. For 3 years, I know I have to adjust how I am, how I expose things. But since we're talking among friends, and we're talking about a very important topic, and I will be leaving in 3 weeks anyway. So what happens here will not create any diplomatic incident. I'm joking. From listening to the congressman, by the way, you are the perfect representative of our bilateral friendship with your surname. I mean, De Venecia. I mean,
I'm from Venice.
I couldn't ask for more. To have a congressman, De Venecia, it's perfect. From your intervention, Congressman, from Mr. Tan's intervention, I'm starting to think that we might have a problem here. That this opera idea could be considered alien to your culture. And it could become political. I'm not a politician, I'm a career diplomat, but I know that this could turn political. Let me share my opinion. And let me focus on opera, because the main topic for me, I'm sorry that I spoke first. So I set a certain direction, and Ben supported me on this. But of course, I totally agree that there are different angles. But for me, this is the angle. I was invited to say something which I consider important. So please forgive me if I keep focusing on opera. There is this risk. Of course, the debate is about, do you agree? I don't. I think that opera belongs to everyone. We should not, and I'm talking also by myself, we should not be a parochial as far as culture is concerned. We're not talking about Filipino culture, or especially when we talk about classical culture. Classical culture belongs to everyone. And what Ben mentioned about this beautiful experience we had together in Tondo, I mean, it's a further evidence. Again, for me, opera has an added value, which is not common among other performing arts. This is a little bit strong, I know that. You could resent that, because you could say, what about musicals? What about folk performing art? What about Filipino opera? So this is the risk I see. Since I hope that, thanks to you, thanks to the Manila Times, thanks to the ones who might like to take up this issue and write about that and start a debate, because this is very important. The debate is about, do we have to promote only Filipino culture? I know it's a tricky question. I know that. I know. I'm talking to a politician, not to a member of parliament, not to a business, not people, you know. I know it's a tricky question. It's dangerous. But let's think about it. Because if we overcome this differentiation, and if we say, all right, opera belongs to the humanity. By the way, opera in November was declared Italian opera only. I don't know why. Maybe it was because our diplomats were better than others. Italian opera, might be contradictory, but I would have named opera in general are patrimony, UNESCO patrimony of the humanity. I don't know if you were aware of that. In November, Italian opera was named. So this is the perfect evidence that the fact that opera belongs to the humanity. If we all agree with that, we can proceed. But I'm afraid that a political debate might start saying, why are we promoting opera? Opera doesn't belong to our culture. We have to do something for our culture. We don't want to waste our money to promote opera. This is the big political issue. And I leave it to you, to the professional of politics. So I don't, it's a Pandora box. So let's be very careful. Let's be very careful. Because if you start to debate about putting a lot of money in building an opera house devoted only to opera, and I'm sorry, of course I was provocative enough when I said to, now we can disclose the responsible of the idea. I mentioned that the opera house in Manila should be devoted only to opera. Probably I went a little bit too far. I know that there is a compromise to be right. Let's have maybe some other form of performing arts. It could be risky, but this is I think it's important for me to say a words of caution. Attention, there could be a political problem here if we start the debate. There could be. Should we worry about that? Maybe not. It's great to debate on this. In my humble opinion, opera should not be considered a Western form of art. It belongs to us.
Well, I think that. Well, I know you're anxious to say something, but let's take this maybe from the foundation bit by bit, and Commissioner Arvin, that would be a for lack of a better word, an existential question for you. How would you integrate that thought of opera as a world culture, which also makes it, a culture that belongs to the Philippines? How would you integrate that into, the perspective of Philippine culture that you maintain and preserve with your agency?
Right. Good morning, everyone. These are excellent points that the ambassador is making, and of course, Congressman and the rest of the speakers. As the prime cultural agency, of course, our mandate is really to promote Philippine culture. But there's always a question: what is really Philippine culture? And I think NCC has reckoned with that thought on the whole spectrum of Philippine culture. But the points of the ambassadors are well taken, but we always would like to put that context that part of culture is also enmeshed with history. I think there was a time where in culture, in all art forms, be it visual arts, music, dance, we had the process of reclaiming our own because we had the dangers of losing our own because of the influence of the colonial period. In fact, we're still in the process of doing that. As I speak, we are documenting all our indigenous local traditions, music traditions, as part also of the National Museum. We're creating sound domes for it. But to cut the long story short, at the Committee of Music of the National Commission for Culture and Arts, we have identified the spectrum of Philippine music. And quoting Dr. Felipe De Leon, who's the former chairperson of NCCA, one of the scholars, we acknowledge that there are 8 living music cultures in the Philippines. And the 8 living music cultures would have the representation of our own diversity in terms of music and all its forms, because music, dance, and theater are quite integrated in the Philippine scene. That's why, hence what Congressman Toff is saying, that we are actually good artists because we manage not only to focus on just one discipline, we manage to integrate all disciplines. And these 8 living music cultures would comprise the indigenous music, the music of the lowland Philippines, the music of colonial period, which are part of our heritage. We don't want to put it aside because there's also the danger of romanticizing it too much that we might miss out on it. We also have, of course, the modern and the global culture. And now going to opera, we have the music of Western and the academe. And this has been identified. And in fact, we do have music schools, those offering bachelor's degree that we do support. However, we lose them because we don't have that avenue wherein they can perform. And I know of several bachelor's degree or even master's that they go eventually to Italy and they do perform. And that's excellence. And that's why maybe your observation about the children having a penchant that they can identify because it's part of our tradition. The classic culture that will become closest to all Filipinos would be the choral music. We have identified that, and you hear choristers really joining competitions. We sing foreign songs. In fact, these are excerpts from the opera or from other periods of music, from the medieval, the Renaissance, the Romantic period. And that's why I don't think it's impossible that opera can thrive. In fact, we do have a long tradition also. It started with the Spanish zarzuela in the 1850s, and the zarzuela became the zarzuela in Spanish and then becomes zarzuela, and of course the vaudeville. But we have to take into consideration that when the Filipinos came, we have to understand the opera because opera is something that, aside from an art form, it has language in itself because you're talking about a particular tale in Italian. And so what the early Filipinos did was to translate this, make into opera, but using our own language and using our tales. Hence, we have opera like Noli Me Tangere El Filibusterismo by the national artist Felipe De Leon Sr., or La Loba Negra, of course, by Francisco Feliciano. So what I'm pointing here from NCCA's point of view, it's not impossible. And I think with the present commission now and with the creative industries, we have to give space. We have to allow each one. We have expertise. My expertise is not actually classical music. My expertise is on indigenous music. But I want the opera form, perhaps, that I can use my Filipino ancestry, our heritage, and put it. But what about inspiration on a purer opera? Like, for example, from an Italian point of view. I think we do welcome that. We need to see its form also. Because we're talking about diversity. And if it's part of the UNESCO's cultural heritage, intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Therefore, we should celebrate it because opera is not just about the message of a particular culture, but it is considered as a musical form. And therefore, the Philippine Opera is able to translate that. And I think at NCCA, if there would be support from embassies, scholarships, or even on infrastructure to create this form of industry, I think we welcome that from the Committee on Music and from the National Commission.
This is exactly what I want to hear. Exactly what I want. I feel relieved now.
Yes.
Ms. Maan, you were anxious to make some comments. I
Yes.
want to give you your chance.
Yes, I was going to tell Ambassador Clemente here that I had the perfect solution for your problem. And addressing this as well to Mr. Kevin Dunn. Yes, we need an opera house. We definitely need an opera house. But so do we need a concert hall for symphonic music. There is not a single hall in the Philippines right now that can truly call itself a symphonic hall. And that's a pity because we have some excellent musicians. We have a long tradition of symphonic music. Manila Symphony Orchestra is now 98 years old. And we're heading to our centennial in 2 years' time. And musicians train very, very hard, very long hours to perfect their skills. They try to buy the best instruments they can. And playing in the halls that are available to us right now diminishes the sound. If it has to be amplified, they don't really hear themselves playing to the best as well. When we went to Japan just after the pandemic for a concert with the Manila Symphony Orchestra, I mean, we were just enthralled by the quality of the concert halls there, and they don't have to be large. So if you're willing to compromise and allow the symphony orchestra into your opera house, I think we can collaborate.
So there is a lot to be done in an opera house. If I may, sorry, I'm monopolizing the conversation. I think with opera, ballet, and symphonic seasons, there is plenty of things to fill an opera house with. You don't need to do anything else. Even though, Mr. Tan, you rightly mentioned your project to do other form of performing arts. But if you devote your opera house to symphonic music and opera and ballet, I think you have your season already ready. There is the risk that, of course, if, economically this is not viable. I'm not a businessman, and I know the risk is there.
Yeah, if I could just share my thoughts. Of course, I'm purely a builder, but with some experience having our own production house, producing these shows. So on a practical sense, allow me to share my thoughts. When we looked at the entertainment landscape globally, you look at Korea, they are very good with their movies, shows, music. But the reason that is because they have a lot of resources. Of course, they were way ahead of the curve. They are able to hire foreign, the most expensive directors, songwriters, etc. Obviously, we cannot compete with that. They have unlimited resources also in terms of spending for their production, for their movies. Bollywood is another example. We don't have their population, so we cannot be them, right? Again, also they have massive resources, a lot of capital to be able to invest in making beautiful movies and of course music. Hollywood, forget it. We're never gonna get there. That's another. They have endless budget for movies. So Philippines cannot compete that way. So that's how we thought about it. So how can we compete? We can compete in content. With theater, all things are equal. There is only so much you can build in terms of set design. I mean, how much can you spend? It's all pretty much equal. Costumes, same thing. It's not about how much more expensive can the costume in Broadway be than a costume in the Philippines. So in Philippines, I think we focus on the content. Because content, Filipino talent is very, very versatile. We have the look. We're the only race in Asia that we can look Spanish. We can look, the Asian. We can have very, very, and we're good at imitating. And that's one thing as well. So on a practical sense, performing arts is really an avenue where we think Philippines can dominate, can actually, can dominate, can excel in. And it can be a unique, if we develop this, it could be our unique selling proposition as a country in terms of what entertainment value we can give. If you notice all the performers abroad, even in the hotels, it's all Filipino singers. We're the best singers, with the best actors. But we need that platform. And another thing that, so theater is achievable. And another thing I think is one area that I think we can also do well is comedy. Comedy doesn't cost a lot of money to produce. So again, I'm looking at it from a business perspective. No? To develop a comedian, for example, or comedy on stage, live comedy. That's something that doesn't cost much to do, but again, it's very much dependent on the content. And Filipinos can do it. I mean, look at us. We have one of the most famous comedian in the world today is Jokoy. Why not create more of that? I think it can, and Jokoy packs in, entire arenas nowadays. Why not develop that too in a global platform? I think we have the talent for that. I think we have the personality for that. We definitely have our cultural sort of makeup is that. We're very fun-loving people. So I think focus on the content. That's all I'm saying. Of course, we could do opera and all these other things. But we need to have an inclusive approach. Not just one approach, but an inclusive approach, leveraging on what the Filipinos' true talents are. Leveraging on what are really our strengths. That's, I think, what we have to, we think we should look at these things. Thank you.
Well, that gives me an idea there, and this might be fall more under the under the responsibility of the Department of Tourism, but could we say that the reason that we are having an opera festival here in the Philippines, and the opera the opera is the opera. That is, it is its own thing. But the reason that it is here is because we have such a vibrant, creative culture developed, and this is a natural place to have an opera festival with a dedicated opera house, and we have an opera, and an orchestra. And it comes here because there's such a vibrant culture, vibrant creative culture around it, so that when the people coming from Japan or coming from South Korea or Taiwan or Singapore to the opera festival, they're going, yes, this is the excellent place to have the opera festival because they are very creative, very cultural there. Can you turn that into an advertising angle, I guess, is a big way to think about it.
From the lens of tourism, I think that tourism is a benefactor of culture and the arts. Without those bays, we cannot sell anything. So I guess for now, before I expound on it, I think Ma'am Karla has something to say.
I have a lot to say. I don't know when I was invited in this forum. Should I tell the truth? Of course. Maybe Ambassador Clemente will kill me this afternoon. I applaud your passion for opera, but I've been doing opera. Promoting opera we're celebrating Philippine Opera Company this year, 25th anniversary. And it's hard. Number one, we're still in the educating stage. In 2006, I think, we were just too mayabang. We started with an opera season, and we had masterclass, a play of Terence McNally's, The Life of Maria Callas, and then we had La Boheme, The Magic Flute, and then we had the Opera Light. We toured opera excerpts in bars. We planned La Boheme, example. We planned La Boheme for 2.5 years. Our marketing was really, really good. But then, a month before the show, Paul Potts went to Manila, and he just won British Got Talent. And the people went to watch Paul Potts than La Boheme. We lost money. So again, we had an opera season. We were just too, ambitious. But now I have to be in the business side because we have an opera house and our art center in Makati that if we lose money, wala na kaming pambayad ng amortization. So we just have to be, okay. I wanted to close Philippine Opera Company 2015. I was just too tired of promoting opera. And then I went to LA just to have a rest. And then I found myself in the vicinity of the LA Opera. And then I asked the Ticketron and I asked them, how are ticket sales? And then he said, it's bad. It's bad. And then the next day I had a meeting with LA Opera and I told them my predicament. I said, I wanted to close Philippine Opera Company because I'm just too exhausted. And then they said, don't worry, Karla, it's a worldwide problem. It's very hard to promote opera. The only opera company that's really making money is the Metropolitan Opera in New York because, all they're giving their subsidies and everything. So what they told me, LA Opera told me, is that you have to focus on the students because they're gonna be your next generation of ticket buyers. I'm emphasizing ticket buyers because we have to stop the discipline of giving away complimentary tickets. Because, every time we mount shows, Filipinos, they always ask for complimentary tickets. Yes, we can fill up CCP, but are they bought tickets? They're not. So how can us, a company, survive? So it's really where opera is still in the educating stage. That's why I kind of stopped mounting Western operas. Number one, because the Filipinos are not really the physique. No. Mr. Clemente is already, this Karla is, So, the physique of the classical singers here in the Philippines is really for Mozart. But no one wants to watch Mozart because they all want the tragedy. They want the Madama Butterfly, they want the Tosca. But the build of the Filipinos is not meant for those kinds of operas. So what we do is we always import. So what happens to our Filipino talents, to our artists? They do the secondary roles, they play the chorus, but is that our thrust or whatever? So with the CCP approached me and then they said, Karla, can you do something? We're doing Discover Opera. Can you make it grassroots? And I said, oh, I love that. So we went to the public schools of Manila. We went to Tondo, and what I did with the script is I made it into teleserye, so that the public school students they can relate. So I changed the names of the characters into Enrique Hill, Liza Soberano, and then I asked them, sino bang kapamilya? Sino ba ang kapuso? So they were so interested. And then after that, it was just a 45-minute show, and then the Q&A portion was even longer, 1.5 hours, because they got interested that, so singing classical can be a career. Hindi lang pala teacher or engineer, lawyer, or whatever. So it opened up that there's such thing as singing classical. And then I wasn't able to sleep for 1 week, and I told Doris there, Doris, why don't we go back to those public schools? I'm sure there are a lot of gems. And true enough, we went back, we held auditions, and there were raw talents. There was someone singing Handel, and I asked this girl, where did you learn? Who's your teacher? And then she said, I just studied myself. I just, listened to YouTube and whatever. And then there's this guy who sang, You Raise Me Up. His socks, wala nang garter. So, naka-rubber band na lang. And it was just so organic. So there are a lot of gems. But unfortunately, again, it boils down, doing opera, appreciation of opera boils down to education. And we have a deeper problem because of our teachers in MAPE. They don't know how to teach classical music. Like a parent approached me and said, Karla, my daughter is so, furious because the teacher said, today we're going to study Mozart. Mozart? What's Mozart? It's Mozart. Because they don't know how to study. They don't know how to teach music. So classical now equals boring. So I'm sorry, but we have a very, very deep problem. It's very ambitious, but it really boils down to education. So like now for Philippine Opera Company, we're focusing on education because they're going to be our next ticket buyers. And then because we're Philippine Opera Company, as what Congressman Toff de Venecia mentioned, one of our most celebrated show is Harana, because we are promoting Philippine music and our culture, because we've forgotten how beautiful it is. So we always tell our audience to love our own and support our own.
Part about kids being inspired to pursue music or opera or the high arts as a career. And I've been here for a lot longer than you, and I see how the culture is in families where the kid's supposed to go be a teacher or a lawyer or an engineer, and you're right. There's a bias against doing something creative, and it counts for my daughter is a pretty good graphic artist, but she would never consider doing that as a career, if she didn't have me around, because that's not going to go with the rest of the family. But you have the girl who learned how to sing Handel by watching YouTube, but her family is going to go, why don't you study nursing? Something that you can make money at. Well, see, this is why I think that Ambassador Clemente's concept really works, and works on the education aspect of it too, because you have the first class opera that is going to draw these, the again, apologies for being classes, but it's going to draw the upper crust, the little bit that's here, and a lot from our neighboring countries, and that people are going to see that and go, hey, this is where the rich people are going. These are the people that are successful. You mean that my child can learn to sing, can learn to play the violin, or and can be in that circle? Then it starts to catch on. Now, as far as the problem with the teachers, good luck with that. But I think it can really catalyze, bringing it to the masses, which I think is where you're going.
If I can intervene, but I would like to hear from the congressman. Let's not forget the topic of this, because you raised an issue which is crucial. You didn't make me kill you. On the contrary, I'm totally behind you, but that's another topic. We're talking about connection between tourism, which brings money. So this is why we have to, and I thank Ben to remind us all, we're talking about doing that bloody opera summer festival to attract rich Asians. When you attract them, the things start rolling. Then there is, sky's the limit, because you can invite children, you can invite the teachers, and then, but you have to start with something. If you have to have a top-bottom approach. This is the only way, and only with opera. I'm sorry to reiterate that. Only opera has the key to bring that crust of people from around the world, or from around Asia. Do it, invest it, and then wait and see. We need courage, political and business courage. So, of course, Mr. Tan is just one of the representatives, but there are plenty of businessmen who might be interested. We maybe focus too much on the opera house thing. The opera house is something which is maybe or maybe not happening in Manila in the near future. But let's focus on this possibility. That's why I get back, the tour, because find a place where to build a temporary auditorium. Could be temporary. I've seen it done everywhere in the world, even in little countries like Estonia. They have their opera summer. And start with that project. Bring the people with money, and little by little the ball is rolling. It could be a fiasco, but if you don't try, I totally agree with you. And I've said that, and when I listen to myself, it's like a broken record. Opera future is doomed in this country if you lose this generation. It's doomed. So let's be pragmatic. I see that particular project, which could be working. I want to be behind you, because I don't want to leave. I want to do something. I think I can do something from it. But I need a concrete project. I need someone from the tourism department come to Italy to meet opera companies, to start talking. I need people like MSO or other CCP or come to Italy. I can help to arrange meetings. I will be doing that with pleasure, because again, this is my reason of life, and because I love the Philippines, and after all, because I do believe that this idea could fly if it's supported by all of us. Sorry for that.
Everything that everybody has said here sort of needs the needs the blessing of the government. So what could you do to kind of either support this directly, or to get people in Congress who hold the purse strings to everything, not insignificantly, to get behind this kind of idea and get thinking in this direction.
I think there's a lot that we need to do, and I'm actually doing a lot of those already. First, I think on the comment of Maan about the concert hall, I believe the implementation of the charter of the CCP was done wrong, because there's supposed to be a separate national theater and a separate national concert hall, but they were merged into just one. And so it's very fortunate that we're having a CCP rehabilitation, redevelopment now. And I believe Malacanang has very ambitious plans on how to reimagine that space. So you're going to have a music hall in the future dedicated for orchestral performances. To the point of Karla and also Ambassador Clemente about more opera and POC, Philippine Opera Company, focusing on education. It's really a supply and demand issue, is it? If there's enough demand, then more opera companies will supply the demand. More opera companies will form in the country. And to my knowledge, there are only 2 or 3 of you. There's not enough. As opposed to theater, there's a lot, because there's also growing demand in the theater now. Just to maybe qualify what I said earlier, since I'm also kind of a provocateur, ambassador. I'm not against Western content, because I'm a theater company owner, and I'm a theater director myself, and I'm directing Little Shop of Horrors, which opens in July. It's a Western musical. I'm directing Little Shop of Horrors, which opens next month. So, and my theater company, I always produce foreign content. So I'm not against foreign content, because there is a demand of foreign content, and I am supplying that foreign content. However, I am, along with Karla, officers of the trade organization for the performing arts called PhilStage. I'm the vice president, and Karla was the former treasurer. And a lot of our colleagues produce local musicals and plays. Like Kevin Tan, who just did the Parokya ni Edgar, just like One More Chance, the musical in PETA. So I think it's a matter of content is king, in that if the content is sexy and it resonates with the public, then people will watch. So I'm totally not against the form of opera. In fact, I celebrate and I love opera. And we just finished watching Rent, which is a musical adaptation of La Boheme. And we just finished watching Miss Saigon, a touring production, which is a musical adaptation of Madame Butterfly. So, creative forms are are inspiring the creation of new forms towards this German concept, of which I am a firm believer of Gesamtkunstwerk, or the total art of art forms like begetting each other, improving upon each other so that we can expand revenue trajectories and the intellectual property ecology, which is what the creative economy is all about. So while digital is upon us, and I was just at the Sigma Summit talking about the synergy between AI, tech, and creativity, they're very intrinsically linked. So we need to be able to explore that, but also not forget intellectual property syndication, meaning to say, working with different creative formats, taking inspiration from film and creating a play out of it, or with what Kevin did, getting the musical catalog of a big OPM band like Parokya ni Edgar and transposing it into a musical theater production, so that we continue to build and grow audiences. So to the problem of opera, I think Karla is on the right track in focusing on education, because you need to educate schools so that students will become the future ticket buyers. And that's one of the KPIs of the creative industry law. It's really expanding and growing market so that we can develop audiences for creative content, whether it's fashion, books, gastronomy, architecture, arts, whatever it is. But then on the industrial side of things, if the opera house is built, and I think that's an exciting proposition, I think we should have an opera house here in the country, a premier distribution platform for operatic content, whether it's foreign or local, such as Harana. I think the business of opera also needs intervention. Because if this opera house is located in Pasay, most likely you'll be dealing with 10% amusement tax, which takes away from the profitability. And at this point, it's even sustainability of the opera industry if there are not enough audiences. So that's one. Two, the venues are very expensive. And most of the players in the performing arts are in the MSME category. They're micro, small, possibly even medium players, but very few. Like, we are a small company. We cannot afford to even perform in Soler because it's too expensive to rent a theater. It's 300 to 400,000 pesos. And even in government venues like the CCP, right now it's undergoing renovation, so you don't have access to the big theater of CCP. Thankfully, Ignacio Jimenez donated a theater and you have a black box. But venues are expensive, and so you need to have those subsidies from government to be able to afford to rent venues. But then we go to the ticket price, which is way beyond the spending capacity of most Filipinos. Thankfully, in Europe, it is heavily subsidized. In fact, 50 or 60% of ticket sales in Europe are subsidized, as opposed to the American Broadway model, which has gotten so out of hand. And tickets that are being sold at $2,000, $3,000 for a Broadway performance because it's not regulated. But in the UK, it is regulated, and that's why it's more affordable to watch. But then it goes back to the market, because the Europeans are trained from the beginning to have appreciation and love of culture. So going to a museum is as germane to them as breathing. And that's why we're working with the NCCA to be able to come up with a market study on just the general appreciation of Filipinos of arts and culture. So we're funding an SWS and Pulse Asia survey because I want to know what we're up against. Because it seems like here we're speaking to a crowd, we're speaking in fora where we're speaking to like minds, but then the general public are not appreciative of culture because it's so far away from more pressing problems of hunger, shelter, just like education, all of these things, and that's why arts is always perceived as like an elite or elitist pursuit. But that's what we're trying to change with creative economy, a creative economy paradigm, because creativity culture gives jobs. It generates revenue. I just mentioned 1.7 trillion pesos from this sector. So people need to realize the economic value of that. And as a final point, going back to Ambassador Clemente's point on the synergy between culture and tourism, because that's the topic. So I'm talking to Director Paolo Tugbang of the Office of Product Development because I have so many frustrations on cultural programs that I bring to my district in Pangasinan, and yet there's a really well-curated exhibit and only 300, 400, 500 people from my 400,000 constituency actually go. And the exhibit is already there. Yeah. They don't have to go to Manila. It's in their own backyard, but they're still not going. So it's like, what's happening? Like, I'm creating a arts festival in my district. It's not LGU related, so it's not the usual LGU festival. I'm talking about an arts focused festival where we do improv comedy, we do visual arts, we do drama, we do dance, we do film. So it's an arts focused festival, and yet people are still not coming, and it's already available to them 5-10 minutes away from their house. So what is happening? And so I'm working with DOT to come up with a study of the arts and culture tourism market. Because I agree with you, Mr. Ambassador, like having a good opera programming here in the country can attract those tourists, but we need data, we need the baseline data, not just like anecdotal evidence based on what you experience abroad. Because I travel to watch shows. In fact, when I go to London and New York, stay at minimum 2 weeks, and all I do is watch musicals. I travel for the art. I'm sure there are many others like me, but I don't know where they are, who they are, and how to reach them. Because I don't know if you'll reach them through a billboard on Times Square. I don't know if you'll reach them through a bus ad at the side of a bus in London, or maybe you'll reach them through social media or through influencers. I don't know. So we need to have that study as to the arts and culture related tourism, because especially DOT NCR, where most of the creative firms are focused, what we now need to work on for our creative industry and the performing arts here, like myself, Karla, is we need to start expanding the performing arts market here in NCR to include tourists. But when tourists arrive here, they don't know what's happening in the country. If you go to Singapore, you're lucky to have 1 or 2 shows. If you go to Hong Kong, if at all, right? But here, just this month, there are like 12 to 15 performing arts shows among our colleagues in Phil Stage. I have a show end of the month. I have another show next month. You know what I mean? But the thing is, the foreigners, they're not aware that these shows exist. And we're doing our due diligence. We're all over the news. We're on social media, but they're not aware. And that's why I think DOT needs to synergize with the creative sector in perhaps the part 2 of our creative tourism summit last year, which we held in Bacolod. That was inceptioning your creative tourism, which is co-creation, meaning it's not just eating the food, it's also cooking the food. It's not just buying the craft, but also creating the craft. That's correct. We need to do that. But we also need creative tourism promotions, meaning to say leveraging on creative content for tourism outcomes. So meaning to say if there is an opera festival here, leverage on this opera festival to bring in opera lovers from all over the world to come to the country and spend. Or if there's a really good film, like what Crazy Rich Asians was able to do for Singaporean tourism, after the film came out, 300% increase in tourist arrivals. We also need that Hollywood box office hit that will showcase the beauty of the Philippines to get them to come here. Or now, of course, we are the guest of honor in the Frankfurt Book Fair. It's a project of Chair Klink and also Senator Lauren Legarda, my mentor. So how do we showcase Filipino literature? Because a really good read of a Filipino book, of a book that tackles the Philippines, will bring people here the same way that a good read of The Beach, really, which became a film with Leonardo DiCaprio, really brought people to Thailand. Or even Eat, Pray, Love, even before the Julia Roberts film, brought people to those three countries, India, Bali, and Italy. So we need to learn how to leverage on local creative content for tourism outcomes. So I'm fully with you on that.
I think I can speak on behalf of all of you because we are exactly the same, let's say, ideas. We, of course, implement them in different way from different point of view. I started in saying I have my idea about opera, so I think that forgive me if I conclude our forum in getting back to the original idea, which is very concrete. Starting from the 1st of July, I will be a free man with a lot of time, but with a fondness for this country and for the culture of this country so big that I will be your humble second ambassador of your country in Italy. You have your own in Rome, who was doing a great job. You said, for instance, they are heavily subsidized. It's not true for summer festival. Verona just, of course, Verona is an amphitheater of 20,000 people. I cannot compare it with what we have in mind. But believe me, they rely on the box office because of the rich Asian tourists and beyond. But you don't have to trust me. Come and see me. Come and see. So this is the way we can conclude. You have a friend there. Come as soon as possible. I would even invite you to come for this coming summer, because I will be traveling extensively throughout Summer Festival, and I will make you meet people from the Puccini Festival, from Verona, from Rossini Festival in Pesaro, and you will see that this is probably less difficult than you think. But of course, you have to learn how to promote it, how to organize it. This is not something to be done next year, maybe not even in 2026, but I think that today we maybe put a foundation together for something to be happening. And I can assure you that with this top-bottom approach, as Ben said, you start to bring money, start to bring tourists, you start to make the front pages in European newspaper, and then, of course, you have to be courageous. Of course, it's a risk, but in life, if you don't take risk, you don't achieve anything. Please come to Italy. I have a way to show you how it can be done. So I'm inviting the congressman, the touring, all of you. It's so fun to go to summer festival in Europe. You cannot imagine. You can do a lot of things. And the day ends in a beautiful auditorium to enjoy opera. It's a fantastic way to spend your summer. So please come, and maybe ideas will be collected by the people who have the means to implement them. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, and that's it for our fireside chat. Let's give them a round of applause, everyone, please.
We ask our esteemed panelists to remain on stage as we invite the Manila Times chairman and CEO, as well as the Manila Times president and COO, to come up front.
So now, Sir Clink and Ms. Blanco wish to present to you plaques of appreciation and recognition as mementos of the Manila Times forum that you helped bring to life today. So for gracing us with your presence, Ambassador Marco, Charlene, Toff, Kevin, Karla, Maan, and Arvin, we offer you these tokens of gratitude.
Thank you, Italian Ambassador Marco Clemente, Tourism NCR Regional Director Charlene Patin, Pangasinan 4th District Representative Toff de Venecia, Alliance Global President and CEO Kevin Tan, Philippine Opera Company founder Karla Gutierrez, Manila Symphony Orchestra President Maan Hontiveros, and NCCA Commissioner for the Arts Arvin Villalon.
Thanks also to all our attendees for making our forum a truly happy one. We are grateful to all of you for joining the conversation about classical culture and tourism, a happy matrimony.